Welcome to the 2020 Maine Women's Fund Virtual Leadership Luncheon Call to Action. My name is Kimberly Creighton, and I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Women's Fund. We would like to thank our very generous sponsors and donors for making all our work possible. Since 1989, Maine Women's Fund has made close to 500 grants totaling more than $2.6 million. And we've supported more than 230 unique organizations across Maine and Wabanaki communities. I feel very blessed to have been connected to the Maine Women's Fund for over 20 years. I attended my first leadership luncheon in 2000, and it was there that I learned about the intentional giving at the intersection of feminism and philanthropy. We make bold investments that transform the lives of Maine women and girls. We partner with our grantees to build capacity, achieve sustainability, and develop the next generation of women leaders. We invest. We incubate and invest in nonprofit organizations run by and for women and girls. We connect. We provide many opportunities for our donors, grantees, and other organizations and leaders to convene, learn, and collaborate. Our persistent advocacy on behalf of women and girls has allowed us to grant more than $250,000 this year. That's double what we've been able to give in past years. Still, there's so much to do. Women are being disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, and our grants programs complement each other and allow us to meet evolving needs. The Safety First for Women Fund was created because of the pandemic. It reflects our longstanding commitment to personal safety. We saw that globally, domestic violence was surging, and we reached out to the Coalition to End Domestic Violence and the Wabanaki Women's Coalition to make sure that survivors had the support they needed at this time. Hotline calls are currently up 83%. We also knew that direct care workers, some of the hardest working, lowest paid workers in the state, didn't have access to personal protective equipment or COVID testing back in March, and they needed an advocate. So we partnered with the Maine Council on Aging to advocate on their behalf, and they continue to do so. We've given more than $53,000 to these organizations, and the gifts are still coming in. Our annual grants are the foundation of our grant making, and they have been for 30 years. It's a competitive grants process, and through it, we support economic security of women and girls in 6 specific funding areas: education, financial skills and literacy, healthcare, leadership, personal safety, and public policy. With the support of another funder, we're investing in and building the capacity of Cash Maine's statewide coalition. They empower individuals and families to achieve long-term financial stability, something that's really important in this moment. In addition to providing grants to all the regional coalitions, we're using our broad network to help build the volunteer capacity of Cash Maine. And volunteers can even work safely from home. Please visit our website if you'd like more information. Thank you. Our SWIFT grants are grants of up to $2,000, and they allow women and girls from marginalized communities to address immediate threats and opportunities that they face, and applications are reviewed on a rolling monthly basis. We look forward to building the underlying goals of this program, shifting more power and resources to women and girls of color. This year, we're really proud to share that over a third of all our funding is going to organizations led by and for women and girls of color. This year, Maine Women's Fund partnered with Wabanaki Public Health to apply to participate in a national learning community through the Women's Funding Network called the Women's Economic Mobility Hub Initiative. We were one of 9 women's funds selected across the country, and we can't wait to share more as this work rolls out over the next year. I have the pleasure of introducing you to our MC today, Renee Smith. She is such a gift to the Maine Women's Fund. As a board member, she directs and assists us in all our day-to-day marketing and communications, in addition to being Camden National Bank's Executive Vice President, Chief Experience and Marketing Officer. It's a joy to learn with her, and she's going to introduce you to our phenomenal honorees and help guide you through the rest of the program. Thank you, Renee.
Thank you, Kimberly. Gosh, this is new to us. I was hoping to stand up at the Holiday Inn and connect with each of you. There's nothing better than looking at the amazing audience members. But things are different, and we're embracing the opportunity. What's new? But hey, we're able to reach more folks throughout the state of Maine and hopefully beyond. It's different. We miss seeing you in person, connecting and sharing our passion for the advancement of women and girls throughout the state. But please know, we hear you and we see you. The Maine Women's Fund is here for 30 years and more, and we are here for you going forward. This year, we selected the theme of a call to action. It often takes passion, an event, or creativity. Most of the time, it's a gut feeling that tells us we can do better. We can do more. These three ladies found that feeling and acted upon it. Today, we honor them. So please sit back and enjoy as we learn about Joan Fortin, the CEO of Bernstein Shore, Councilwoman Angela Okafor of the Bangor community, and Chief Sabatis. I promise you'll be just as inspired by these amazing women and their stories, and you'll be wanting to see what your call to action might be as you listen to what they've done to create such a better place for our Maine women and girls. The first honoree I'd like to talk to you about is Joan Fortin. She is the first female chief executive officer in the 105-year history of Bernstein Shore, one of Maine's largest law firms. Joan's call to action is to create a diverse and inclusive work environment that promotes a healthy work-life balance for every employee and attorney at Bernstein Shore. Prior to her promotion to CEO, Joan served on the firm's board of directors and as director of attorney recruiting and retention. In those roles, Joan was a leader in the effort to implement an expanded paid family leave policy, providing 16 weeks leave to all new parents and covering all full-time employees, associates, and shareholders. In response to the pandemic and its heavy toll on the lives of all employees, particularly working parents, Joan and her team have instituted a series of policies promoting work-life balance. The firm increased vacation time for most full-time employees by 1 full week and has encouraged attorneys and staff to use intermittent family leave as employees navigate children issues and the challenges of remote learning while working full-time. A Maine native and a graduate of Colby College, the University of Maine, and Northeastern University School of Law, Joan has volunteered her time to a wide variety of social causes, from chairing the 2019 Go Red Luncheon for the American Heart Association to serving as a mentor in the Olympia Snow Women's Leadership Institute. The Maine's Women Fund is honored to highlight Joan's call to action focused on diversity, inclusion, work-life balance, and empathy. Our next honoree is Angela Okafor. She is the first immigrant and the first person of color to be elected to the Bangor City Council. Councilwoman Okafor's call to action is to create a bridge between Bangor natives and Bangor's growing immigrant community to form a cohesive community based on mutual benefit and respect. Since Councilwoman Okafor and her husband moved to Bangor in 2008, she has responded to that call, have receiving her legal training in Nigeria. Angela started her own law practice focused on immigration law. Angela has also opened the Tropical Tastes and Styles International Market in Bangor, selling products from Asia, the Caribbean, South America, and Africa, and a small hair salon, providing hair braiding and accessories. Both of these businesses provide a sense of community to her immigrant and non-immigrant customers alike. And in 2019, only months after becoming an American citizen, Angela was elected to the Bangor City Council, where she intends to broaden the city's outlook with a focus on bolstering its workforce and improving its public transportation. The Maine Women's Fund is honored to celebrate Councilwoman Okafor's call to action focused on community and representation. Our next honoree is Clarissa Sabatis, the tribal chief for the Holton Band of Maliseet Indians. Chief Sabatis' call to action is universal recognition of the inherent sovereignty of the Holton Band of Maliseet Indians and the three other Wabanaki tribes, the Penobscot Nation, the Passamaquoddy tribe, and the Aroostook Band of Micmac Indians. Prior to her election to tribal chief, Chief Sabatis is a registered nurse, coordinated clinical care of Madigan Healthcare Facility in Holton. As chief, Chief Sabatis leads a staff that handles all aspects of the tribal administration, from healthcare and education to housing and social services. She also maintains relationships with all levels of government, federal, state, and local governments, in addition to intertribal organizations. Chief Sabatis spends most of the decades working at Wabanaki Public Health, holding positions as district PH liaison to director. During this time, she was part of a team that established and grew the tribal public health infrastructure. Chief Sabatis was very involved in advocating for the passage of LD 2094, an omnibus piece of legislation which would place the tribes in Maine on the same or similar footing as every other federally recognized tribe in the country. One legislator on the Judiciary Committee requested that LD 2094 be broken up into individual pieces of legislation. The tribes in Maine agreed, and the Judiciary Committee voted on 3 separate pieces of legislation. The session was abruptly ended because of COVID-19 before the full House and Senate had the opportunity to vote on these bills. Still, the tribes have never had these vital issues fully discussed and voted out of committee before, and that is a triumph in and itself. The Maine Women's Fund is honored to celebrate Chief Sabatis' call to action, seeking expanded recognition and a better way of life for her tribe and all Native people.
I think everything I do really is about advancing the sovereignty and self-determination of our tribe. From the work that I was doing around substance use treatment and which began way before I was chief, to the work at the state level around land claim settlement, and even at the federal level, all of it essentially is just an assertion of our rights and our right to choose how we heal, how we govern, and our right to be treated fairly and equitably.
I would say my call to action has evolved over time. A number of years ago, when I was a practicing attorney, not yet in a leadership position, at some point along the line, I started noticing the issue of gender disparity in the private practice of law, and that the legal profession has a problem retaining women in private practice. And somewhere along the line, it just quietly became my goal to do something about that. And my thinking was the generations that went before us broke down the barriers that allowed women to enter the private practice of law. And I really feel that it's incumbent upon my generation to help equal the playing field so that the women who enter the private practice of law can stay and thrive throughout the course of their careers.
From my personal experiences and my personal struggles, I wanted to make things better for myself, my kids, and of course the greater community. So serving on the city council has been a lot of learning process, very eye-opening, very fulfilling, really. I've met and I've been working with awesome people. I mean, I'm not trying to paint a picture here. We have struggles, we have disagreements, we have arguments. But what brings us together is still understanding that we all love this community and we come from a good place, and being able to respectfully find middle ground. So.
Diversity and inclusion has been an important part of my personal ethos, even before becoming a lawyer. And again, early in my career, I noticed that topic didn't have the same focus in the private practice of law that it had in higher education, where I was before becoming a lawyer. A number of years ago, I was one of the founding members of our firm's then diversity committee. It's now our diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. And I certainly wasn't alone. There were a number of us who were really focused on bringing that topic more attention over time. We are part of a 3-firm effort, along with the University of Maine School of Law, to create a diversity 1L, which is what we call first-year law student program. So Verrill, Pierce Atwood, and Bernstein Schur collaborated to create a diversity program for first-year law students. And we had those folks with us this summer. And so part of the programming that wasn't able to happen in person, we didn't get to do receptions, of course, so we tried to do a number of walking tours and walking meetings, and that turned out to be hugely popular, so that was really nice. Each of the 3 firms had 2 students each. We did collaborative programming, so each of the 3 firms hosted a program for all of the D1Ls, as we call them, along with attorneys from our firms. The University of Maine was terrific. Lee Softly is now the dean of the University of Maine. She was wonderful. She hosted a number of our events, as well as we had a number of attorneys throughout the legal community in Maine who were generous with their time and were speakers with our program, as well as, of course, the D1L students got to work in each of our firms and got legal experience here in town. So we're really, really happy with the program, and we're now collaborating again, talking about how to expand that program for next year.
It's really been frustrating to have people not understand, and I think we've done a lot of education with lawmakers specifically, even though it might not necessarily have been our jobs. It was great to see the shift when people understood, but it's also frustrating to think that it takes us doing that and having to do the education ourselves for people to get there. And then it's still, I think no matter what, people have these biases that are just deeply ingrained in who they are. And even when they understand, what sovereignty means and why it's so important to us, and why self-determination is so important to us, our survival, our our resilience, they still struggle with not having control. Some things are difficult, and especially when no one says anything. So the complacency is also a challenge. How do you deal with that when you're the minority in the room as well? And how do you deal with that when you don't want that to be a barrier for the conversation and the work that's happening? There's so much to what we experience here in Maine. It's not, aside from the racism and this huge Land Claim Settlement Act, and that in itself is so complex. But there are pieces of it that, I think people could really help impact, even if it's just helping someone else understand. So I think educating themselves, educating others, or at least encouraging people to head in the right direction to get that information for themselves, and talk about why it's important. I think that we don't need to be saved. But having allies definitely has an impact on all of the issues that we deal with.
So I've been in Bengal for 13 years. I had all my kids here. And when I first came, of course, I felt like running away. But over the years, I have grown, and our community have grown so much. When I moved here, it was seeing anybody that wasn't white was like, oh my goodness, you're getting the treat of your life. When I first came, I kind of felt like people have a lot of walls. Having most of the people here haven't left Bengal or Maine. So to meet someone else from so many other, somewhere very far away, right now in retrospect, it's more understanding. Like I can understand it better now. But when I first came, I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be like everybody else. And, there and then, like, I shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't have to do that. It took a while, but it ended up happening. And I learned that, it's just people building up walls out of, comfort or what they are used to. But one beautiful thing about this community, though, is once you're able to break that wall, people are just unbelievable. Even though, yes, we are working on, helping people to not have those walls at all, because not everybody has the strength and patience to try to break the walls. But at the same time, you know, realizing that people are truly nice here and supportive, it's been a huge thing. And another thing that I so love about this community is open-mindedness. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of things going wrong, but being open-minded, accepting, okay, we don't know it all, we need help, or how can we do this, come to the table, let's talk about it. I cannot overemphasize how great that is, and how progressive and development that can bring to a community. It's mostly childcare, really, and being able to, like, right now in the times of COVID, being able to walk around kids, like in so many of the Zoom meetings I've been around, there is almost always one of my kids doing something funny, or distracting me, or just doing something, wanting attention. So having kids, it's a huge challenge, but I look at life that, they can slow you down, but only you can stop you. My biggest challenges in advancing my work have been being an immigrant, a woman, a Black woman, and the mother of very young kids. You get questioned a lot. Like when I was campaigning, I got questions as to, you're a mother, your kids are still young. Like, how are you going to be able to do this, And in practice, it's not easy. But the way I look at things is, there is always a way.
I love what I do. I feel like being here has helped me bring forth change that I've hoped for. But I also help take care of parents that can't that need caregivers. Most of the waking hours of the day, and I have a 6-year-old, and teenagers, one that's graduating. I didn't think that I would feel it like I do, and feel like I might be taking myself away from my children and my home more than I would like. And the politics is tough sometimes, and sometimes that can, weigh on me. So I think right now that's my biggest challenge, is just within myself. And there's so many things that are shifting and changing. It like tugs at me. Those new demands are a lot on women in general. Isolation from your friends, from your extended family, the worry of making someone sick. I still have to go into my parents' home, and my sisters and I swap weekends, and we're there. That worries me. I worry about my children getting sick. Am I making the right decision sending them to school? Am I making the right decision by having our offices opened? There's so many things. I think that virtual life is, navigating that is even stressful sometimes.
One of the things that we've tried to do here is focus on our people. I mentioned that I think we all provide better services to our clients if we take care of ourselves, and that's been a real theme of mine with our family leave policy. We changed our policy a couple of years ago to make a very progressive policy that provides 16 weeks of paid leave, and it applies to same-sex couples, and it applies to adoption, foster care. We made our policy apply equally to all employees. Interestingly, articles are now really starting to come out, and the data is starting to show that the pandemic is setting women back economically decades, and women are leaving the workforce in far greater numbers than men. In terms of data showing that result, and that's deeply distressing. So I think those of us who are really committed to having gender equity in the workplace and gender equity in our pay are going to need to double down to make sure that we really are doing everything we can.
We honor our elders. That's what we do. We do our best to take care of them. I mean, they're the carriers of our knowledge and our history and language. And we even hold an event every November. We call it Honor Our Elders. We weren't going to do it, and then a couple weeks ago, we decided, you know what, we're going to do what we can. So while it's not honoring our elders, it's still celebrating us. I felt like it needed to happen. So we're doing an event where we're going to have we're having drive-in bingo here. We're going to be having drumming and dancing there with social distancing, but we have it so that people could come park and sit and listen. We're live streaming on Facebook. We made a marketplace for vendors because we usually have vendors that attend and they sell things. So we have someone who's putting items online so that they can still vend virtually. We are having giveaways for children and adults, and we're having a health fair, a drive-through flu shot clinic. So there's we're still doing a lot of the things. It's a drive-through, but I feel like at least we're getting people out. So it's still, and getting people together, sort of.
This whole COVID era has, for whatever reason, I felt more comfortable showing how I can be vulnerable too. I struggle too. And I realized that when I do that more, I think it helps me break barriers, and people are more open to share or to, because I like personal interactions. I like to connect with people, and it's been tough, but this whole period has given me more reasons to appreciate little things and little different things that I probably would have taken for granted. So I pretty much go with the flow, one day at a time. I take solace in the fact that I have a community here, a community that works together most of the times. Yes, the things that happen federally, yes, they affect us, but the things that affect us every day are the things that happen in our community, and I'm so grateful that we are working together most of the times to make a better community for us. My colleagues, the staff, they've made it a little easier for me, being, having young kids. I've gone to council meeting with my kids and they were kept busy. And of course, some chocolates and fruities to keep them busy too.
I've really pushed people to try to take care of themselves so that they can take care of their team and they can help take care of our clients. So some of the ways that we've done that, pre-pandemic, when I first arrived, we took a look at our vacation policy, and the vast majority of the people in the firm got an extra week of paid leave right away. We felt that nobody should start with less than 3 weeks of paid leave. So everyone at the firm comes in at every level with a minimum of 3 weeks of paid vacation. So that change happened just pre-pandemic. Then once the pandemic started, we instituted a number of things right off the bat, just trying to provide support for our people, virtual yoga classes. We want people to know that we support them. We're all in this together, and we're all going to get through this pandemic and out on the other side, but we have to support each other. And so for those folks who need to homeschool or otherwise take care of children during this time, we're trying to set up as many supports as possible. So we did a survey and we collected a whole host of free or low-cost resources and put out a guide to our whole firm by categories. So spiritual resources, mindfulness resources, healthy eating resources, exercise apps, mindfulness, that sort of thing. So we asked our folks, what they're doing to take care of themselves and to stay healthy that they might recommend for others. So we made that available. The other thing that, the other idea that popped up at that time that was kind of fun was along the lines of trying to help provide entertainment for children so their parents could work. Someone came up with the idea of a story time. So we have a number of our attorneys who offered to read an age-appropriate child. They would pick the story and pick the age of the children who would be best suited for that book, and we would set them up on Zoom so that the parents could register their children for story time, and one of our attorneys would read to the kids, and hopefully freeing up time for mom or dad to either work or maybe even just have a cup of tea and relax.
Professionally, I would have to say my dear friend Lisa Sakabasin. You know, her knowledge and passion for everything she touches always just amazes me. I think she's an embodiment of just strength and knowledge and eloquence. Also, Imelda Purley, who is my mentor. She has been my teacher when it comes to ceremony and culture, and she's a language teacher. She's kind of like a grandmother to all of our communities. So there's 7 communities. Actually, there's 8, but there's 7 kind of in a cluster. We're the only one in the United States, and then there are 6 others in New Brunswick. And she is like everybody's grandmother. And I feel lucky to, have been able to spend a lot of time with her one-on-one. She's, she's bringing back teachings and doing it in a way that's just inviting to people. And I think that, a lot of my time that I spent with her really has helped me be a better leader as well.
It is impossible for me to answer that question. I have so many different women I admire in different categories, and certainly some who I depend on so thoroughly. But I think at the end of the day, I have to pick 2. I choke up immediately. Of course, the first one is my mom, Rita Fortin. I grew up on a dairy farm in central Maine, and she was a stay-at-home farm wife who had 5 kids and just created the best foundation any could ever wish for. And she's smart and super strong and a loving mother, and made a really, really wonderful life for us, and is still someone I greatly admire and look up to. So she's my number one, and my other number one on the professional side has to be Pat Beard. She is now retired. She was a longtime shareholder here at Bernstein Scher. She is a fantastic lawyer, a fierce advocate. Speaking of diversity and inclusion, she too was a founding member of our diversity committee, but she also fought tirelessly for equal rights for the gay community, and she has been a mentor of mine, a friend of mine, and someone I could not possibly admire more.
I actually do not have a single woman I admire. I have a ton of women I admire. A lot of them, because every woman has something unique about her. I have friends who are more like planned, I'm just all over the place, like, so I'm learning, okay, even though I'm all over the place, but maybe I could learn a little bit of being more structured. So I have women who are like, who will always kind of my hype women that will always, even when especially when I doubt myself, will always like, oh no girl, like you got this, you are doing awesome. And so I don't have a single woman that I would say this is my role model. No, I have a lot of women I get so many forms of encouragement and inspirations from, and putting them together is what helps me a lot.
Wow, that was so great to listen to the stories of our honorees' call to action. Joan Foran, it's wonderful to hear you listen to the work-life balance for all of your employees and shareholders there at Bernstein Shore. Chief Sabatis, we continue to support you. We know you'll do great things from healthcare to education of our youth. And Councilwoman Angela Okafor, we appreciate all you're doing for the immigrants living in Bangor and throughout the state of Maine. We appreciate your advocacy.
Thank you all for sharing your personal calls to action, as well as your words of wisdom and inspiration with us today. I know everyone appreciates hearing your personal stories, so thank you for sharing them. I've been involved with the Maine Women's Fund as a volunteer for over 20 years now, and have been on the board for the last 5. I served as president last year and share that responsibility and honor with Gabrielle Gallucci this year. So why have I remained involved with the Maine Women's Fund for so long? What's been my personal call to action? Well, as a mother of a daughter and a son, I want to see my children live in a world where women and men have the same opportunities to live safe, healthy, productive lives free from discrimination. And unfortunately, that is not a reality yet. My daughter will face challenges solely based on her gender that my son will never know. Things like earning 80 cents on the dollar compared to what he earns, or being 9 times as likely to be the victim of sexual assault. This is not okay. I've seen the Maine Women's Fund address these types of issues in their work and many more over the years that I volunteered with them. The Maine Women's Fund exists to transform the lives of Maine women and girls in a way that no other organization is doing in this state. The incredible grantees that we fund every year come from every county in the state and provide programs for women and girls from ages 3 to 83, Black and Indigenous women and girls of color, gay, straight, and transgender. The need for these services in Maine is great, as is funding for women and girls programming in the United States in general. While charitable giving in the U.S. can reach levels of $400 billion per year, only 1.6% of that money goes to support women and girls' causes. That's less than 2 cents on the dollar. Then, as if things weren't challenging enough, cue COVID-19. The global pandemic has disproportionately impacted women and girls. For example, women make up 67% of the healthcare workforce, and they're on the front lines dealing with patients every day who are critically ill and contagious. Millions of children are learning remotely, and as women still take primary responsibility for childcare, their participation in work outside the home has decreased significantly. Already, 54% of women report a reduction in work hours compared to only 31% of men. Intimate personal violence against women has increased in this period. Women are often forced to isolate with the very person who is harming them. They may lose access to outside resources and support due to social distancing and gathering requirements. And they may be afraid to go to shelters for fear of contracting the virus themselves or exposing their children to it. All of this means that the women and girls of Maine need your help more this year than ever before. The pandemic has greatly magnified the already existing challenges we face. We need your financial support to continue this crucial work so that we can move forward and not fall further behind. So let this be your call to action today. Give as if you or someone you love relies on one of the programs that the Maine Women's Fund supports. There's information on how to give on your screen, and you can go directly to our website and donate. Please give today. We greatly appreciate your support, and we can't do it without you. Thank you. Everyone who donates online to the Maine Women's Fund today will be entered into a raffle drawing for one of these beautiful items shown on screen, sourced from Maine and Maliseet women artists. Click on the green Donate Today button at the top of the screen on the homepage at www.mainewomensfund.org to give.
I want to thank you all for joining us today, whether you're in your office, you're at your nonprofit organization, or you're in your family room. It's great that we could reach so many wonderful women and others throughout the state of Maine today. We hope you appreciate what we do here at the Maine Women's Fund. As always, I'm going to give that last minute push. If you could donate for us today, it would be more than welcome. Anything you can give will help support the great work that we do, connecting with nonprofit organizations, helping them grow, helping them provide programs that all benefit our Maine women and girls. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to our sponsors. Once again, you have made this event free for everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today and helping us put this show on. I want to encourage you to register for our emails. We have great communication, lets you know what's happening to women throughout the state of Maine and other programs. So please continue to support us. We look forward to continuing our work throughout the state, and we continue to connect with every one of you. Thank you again, and we hope to see you soon.